Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
What is up? Welcome to Drinkin' Bros. I am your host, Rob Fox. I'm joined by Dan Holloway, and we have a very special, legendary guest, really, Adam Carolla, the pretty much the godfather of podcasting, as far as I'm concerned.
Or godmother. We don't know how he identifies.
Fair, yes.
We should ask first, actually. Adam?
Well, my license actually has an X on it under sex, and that's not a lie. I was filling out my driver's license at a DMV. I had my son with me because in LA you can't get DMV appointments because it's LA and we don't know how to run anything in LA, even the DMV. So I was out of town doing a vintage car race, and I was at Laguna Seca, which is up north, and so I had my son with me because I was running by to get my license renewed, and he was with me in between races, and he just said, "It'd be funny if you checked the box that said, non-gender specific and whatever." And I said, that does sound funny. So I checked the box. So if you check my license, there is no gender on there.
You're very progressive. Everybody knows that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of been your MO from the very beginning, actually.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of nothing. And that's what I like sexually.
Just nothing?
Yeah.
Just a
Just
vacuum?
nothing.
Yeah.
We're all just one thing.
Yeah, it's like the Borg. We're all being assimilated into a genderless, sexless, featureless fucking group of whatevers, right?
Yeah.
I like it. If we don't have any distinctive traits, then nobody can make fun of each other. Everybody's feelings are safe, and God forbid your feelings get hurt.
I don't like it.
And, people used to really frown on masturbation, but if we don't really have a sex and everyone is everything, then what really, how can you turn your nose up at masturbation anymore? Isn't that just a sort of safe form of having sex with everyone, including yourself?
As long as you're getting consent from yourself, Adam, obviously. I mean...
Oh, that's a good point.
Affirmative
consent, yeah.
You need to be every other stroke.
It depends on the state. I think states have different rules, but to be safe, every other stroke you ask if it's okay.
Yeah, is this okay? Is this...
I think it's getting really tedious around here.
It is.
It's like how when government doesn't like something and they know they can't outlaw it, they just add a bunch of bureaucracy to it to make it an untenable solution. That's what these retards are doing with sex now. It's a bunch of fucking involuntary celibate people and fat white women with weird hair that are just upset about life. And they're like, well, if I can't have fun, nobody will. Like, oh, cool.
Also, I think the fat old chicks love telling stories about how once they were in a bar and somebody put their hand on their thigh and they felt uncomfortable. And it's like, did that really happen?
Yeah, it's like a 5'5" guy saying he dunked last week. I'm like, come on, bro. Like maybe you're Spud Webb, maybe you're one out of gajillion people, but probably not.
Well, it's kind of like the 5'5" guy going, I want to outlaw the tomahawk dunk. And it's like you going, you do? Yeah, it's an issue. Like, oh, so you've got some hops then. Don't worry about it.
Well, I wanted, before the show, I was thinking about, we do have some. We have one half empty or half full, depending on your perspective.
Right.
Bottle of Mangria, which is actually really good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If you guys haven't tried it yet, you should try it. But now you've got some new stuff going on. You've been doing podcasts for 30, 40 years now, I think, since the internet existed. But now you're moving over to at least one of your shows, Truth Yeller, on Daily Wire. So they're gobbling up a lot of talent right now.
Yeah, and me. So, yeah, I'm doing 6 stand-up specials on the Daily Wire.
That's awesome. What 6 hour-long specials?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, that's a lot of material.
Yeah.
It is. Technically, I go out and I do about 15 or 20 minutes at the top. and that is Material Gobbler. But then I bring on the guest, and we do an interview, and we'll play a game, and we'll do improv, and the guest will do some of their material. So it's not, a full hour of me standing up there doing stand-up burning material for, times 6.
Well, that's an interesting format. So you're going to have, is it going to be primarily other stand-up or other comedians, rather, that are coming on?
Well, it kind of started that way. I mean, Jay Leno was the first guest, and then Rob Riggle came on. And, at some point, I think we'll have Bill Shatner, TJ Miller's going to come on.
Do you think he can
Patrick Warburton?
Do you think he can get Shatner to redo the thing where he does the spoken word Rocket Man while smoking a cigarette? Can you remember that from the 70s?
Yeah.
If you could get him to do that again, that would be great.
I think we could do it with an e-cigarette, but I think I could get him to do Rocket Man with an e-cigarette.
Well, he's a legit Rocket Man now, though.
Yeah, been to space.
Yeah, he's like one of, a couple of dozen people in the history of humanity to go to space.
I think we're pushing like 30 or 40, right? At least.
We got to be in the 40 range, yeah.
Maybe,
probably.
I mean, we might be pushing like 50 to 100. I don't know.
It depends on, do you count the Challenger guys? Because technically...
Did they, I don't know how high they got. I don't think that counts.
Yeah, that's fair.
They did not escape the Earth's gravitational pull from the footage I've seen. Not funny.
Oh,
just a comment.
Yeah, it's not. You didn't destroy that rocket ship.
Yeah, you didn't
just
knock loose
observing what happened.
I did work for Morton Thiokol at the time, and I was part of the group that worked on the O-ring. So, technically that's not true. I was pretty involved.
So we're finding out all these years later.
Yeah.
40 years, 35 years later?
The 80s, late 80s,
yeah, it's 86, right?
Oh, yeah, Euro was born.
So 35 years later, we find out that Adam Carolla is a not even international, but interplanetary terrorist.
Well, again, they didn't leave the planet, so it's...
Oh, that's fair. So that still falls under you, under
Earth
jurisdiction?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think it falls on to Earth's jurisdiction.
Well, parts of it did.
Yes.
So this is that's a pretty interesting format. I mean, it'll be interesting to see people that have something to say, because you talk to a lot of folks that aren't necessarily comedians, but have, I think a lot of the TED Talk people and presenters in general have moved beyond the old boring symposium stuff and kind of started to interweave a lot of the things that they've learned from the stand-up comedian community over the years. Because it's one thing to sit in front of a camera and talk for an hour about random bullshit, and another thing entirely to have your 45 minutes to an hour of material, go through it, know when the laughs are so you can pause and then do the rest of the joke and all. It's a grind. It is a very specific skill set. But I think a lot of these people that are doing work, that are doing a lot of presentations now, have learned quite a bit from you guys.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you want to stand on stage and hold a microphone, it's probably good to, tear a page out of the comedian's playbook, because even if you're not at a comedy club and you're just at some, convention for HVAC guys or something, it still would support you and aid you to have that sort of comfort on stage, the way you handle the mic, timing and so on and so forth.
For sure. And I think we're seeing a lot of it now. So, you're I don't want to compare you to Bill Maher, because you're an adult and a man, but that's very similar to his format. So he does an opening monologue, brings a guest out for a one-on-one, and then does a panel. Now I don't suppose you're going to do the panel part, but that is a pretty good formula, because you get he catches everybody up to what's going on, at least in his brain, and then you get a guest who kind of gives you an interlude into what the conversation's about to be, and then you have the conversation. I think that's a really good format, and it seems like your format is going to mirror that, at least to some degree, because you guys are going to have I assume the game playing thing is going to be just a backdrop for the conversation that's happening, right?
Yeah, it's an excuse to get into more comedy, and then at the end we do a full improv bit where before the show we hand out these colorful balls and people write one word on it and they hand it back, and we put it in a bingo hopper, and we stir it up, and whoever the guest is with me on stage will pull them out, and they'll just mention the one word that's on the ball, and I'll have to make up a stand-up routine around it.
So it's not fully like Bill Maher or whatever, like all political. Like you want to have fun and do comedy too. Like this isn't just like a current events type show or anything like that.
No, it's definitely a comedy show.
That's good.
Which I think people would get the wrong idea because it's on the Daily Wire, right? They'd be like, "Oh, is this like a right wing like political situation? What is?" But it's like really just it's a nice platform to do comedy on, I guess.
Well, I think the Daily Wire, like many companies, kind of started as one thing and are kind of morphing into something else. Amazon used to just sell books, and Netflix used to mail you DVDs, and and they've expanded, right? And so I think the Daily Wire is looking to do that with comedy, with sports, and other forms of entertainment. So that's kind of their mission statement. It's not so much pundits, talking heads, interviews, but they want to expand the format out.
Right. Do you think there's still one guy getting DVDs from Netflix? And they can't shut down the entire program because he signed like some long extension or something.
He got like
that?
the sweetheart 50-year deal for $1,000.
And they sent him a letter like, "Hey, we're not really doing that anymore." And he has his attorney send a cease and desist to Netflix. I think that would be a good battle.
That's my stepdad, John. He's that guy.
He's just the last holdout.
Yeah.
Like, you can't take this away from me. This is America, goddammit. So, one of the articles I read on Daily Wire recently about your new show is a comment you made, and it says something to the effect of comedians should have basically diplomatic plates with regard to cancel culture. Because can you explain that a little bit? I know that a lot of people said the job of comedy is to walk up to the line and sometimes cross it just so we know where the line is, and then also expose stupidity from time to time. But I want to hear, your thoughts on that particular statement.
Well, what I kind of meant by diplomatic plates is, I don't even know if they still have diplomatic plates, but you used to be able to get diplomatic plates on your car, and then you could just park anywhere because you were a diplomat. That's the way it worked. And you wouldn't get towed or ticketed or penalized in this analogy. And for me, it was like, yeah, that's what stand-up should be like, or comedy should be like. Like, you're a comedian, you can say what you want because you're under the umbrella of comedy and being a comedian. And, if you're a school teacher or an airline pilot, well, then maybe you can't say everything you want to say. But as a comedian, you should be able to say everything you want to say, and that's where the diplomatic plates come in.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of got to be like that. And it's the news. I know you're not like trying to get topical with the show necessarily, but the news with Twitter, with the new CEO that's coming in, who has said it's not our job to make sure the First Amendment exists and blah, 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 and things like that. I mean, technically he's right, I guess. And at least this dude is telling the truth and saying what he actually thinks, because that's not the case with most people that are leaders in the tech field. They're like, we're going to create this metaverse, and it's going to be good for everybody. Like, we've all seen the movie Gamer. We know that it's going to turn into some 400-pound version of America where the dude can't lean forward. He's just back like this the whole time with Cheetos on his belly like a fucking otter.
Yeah.
And he's controlling an NPC that's an actual real human being in the metaverse.
It's like Ready Player One, but no one's hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's basically like saying, what these guys essentially want you to believe is, it's like if I said, I'm a vegan, I'm very much into the vegan lifestyle, and I'm, a devout vegan. But don't worry, when I go to work, if you want to have a sloppy Joe or pastrami sandwich, that'll be your business. I'm just here to run this business. You go ahead and cook some hot links out in the parking lot. I don't care. I'm a vegan, but I'm not going to impose any of that on any of you. Well, how long before that guy starts looking at employees that are getting the meat lovers pizza and saying, "You sure you don't want to try the broccolini?" And then at what point do I start letting people go who are ordering the Meat Lovers pizza, but saying, no, it wasn't because he ordered the Meat Lovers pizza. It's that there was some pencils missing, and I think he stole them from the supply closet. Like, how long are you going to be able to think this way but not have it imposed whatsoever in the workplace? And the answer is you're not.
Well, that's
So
the
if
problem.
that's the way you think, that's the way Twitter's going to work.
Exactly. Well, yeah, for sure. And that it's a problem of I don't know if it's a right versus left problem even. It's just a problem of people's priorities. Like, what is your goal exactly with the work that you're doing? Even if it's to entertain, I think people are still trying to push a message. And for most comedians, I know the message they're trying to push is, this is a fucking joke.
Right.
Like, we are we're not the arbiters of the First Amendment, but we're one of the primary fucking defenders of and examples of the First Amendment, right?
Yeah.
Because we can say whatever we want. And sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's not. Sometimes people get butthurt, sometimes they don't. But the avenue is open there. And these folks who seem to be very much concerned or occupied by what other people are doing that has little to no effect on them, that is a real problem for me. Like, it's not about, like, we want you to believe this way. It's like, we don't want you to think for yourself. That's what they're really saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a fucking problem.
I would be happier if your thought didn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, if your own mind isn't protected from external intrusion by whatever system of society, whether it's a government or whatever religion, whatever it is, that institution is a failure to you, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the institution of the American Republic and our representative democracy doesn't protect us from authoritarian assholes telling us how to think and feel, sometimes at gunpoint, and I would say taking someone's livelihood away is effectively at gunpoint, then it's failed, right? Am I wrong about that? That seems like a failure to me.
No, it's a failure. They always do this dance where they go, I'm for free speech and I'm for, the right for you to have a different opinion and open forums and all that kind of stuff. But they're really not. They're not, because their actions are different than what's coming out of their mouth. They're all for free speech on campuses until somebody shows up like Jordan Peterson, and then they have a major issue with it. And obviously you got to look at what people do, not listen to what they say. And their actions are just different from what they say. And the reason you can't say it, because no one can say, I'm against free speech, it's my way or the highway, I just want this sort of monolithic mentality, I don't want a variety of opinions, because these are the same assholes that never stop talking about the importance of diversity. So you can't talk out of one corner of your mouth about how beautiful it is that we have this diversity and never stop beating this diversity drum, when it comes to the fire department, representing the community that it serves and other nonsense, and then start talking about, I don't want any diversity of opinion. But that's essentially what they're doing.
Right. And diversity of thought, by the way, is way more important than any other kind.
Right.
Like,
of course.
I don't think that most of the people that I know, including a variety of races, religions, or irreligion or whatever, give a fuck about anybody else's race or religion. This doesn't seem to come up that much except for in the news.
Yeah. Well, the whole diversity thing was supposed to be, like, they were tied together, right? It was supposed to be skin color and diversity of thought, because, this black person's going to think a different thing than this white woman, blah, blah, blah.
Well, but don't be a black person that doesn't agree with the black
right,
stuff.
that's the problem. I was going to say. But then they were like, well, let's just get the good ones in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny how it's reversed? Like, the South in the 1950s, you might hear a phrase like, oh, they're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
Or as a black person, like, oh, they know their place. They're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And now it's the same. Now it's like but it's the left saying, well, I mean, they agree with BLM and stuff and whatever, man, so they're one of the good ones, Like, are you fucking serious? You're using the same language that racist cunts used in your own lifetime.
Right. In living memory.
God damn it, dude. I mean, I don't know what to do about this except for just hold the mirror up, and that's what comedy does. We're so lucky in this country to have comedy that isn't censored that much. I mean, honestly, we don't get fucked with
All things considered.
all things considered. We don't get fucked with nearly as much as Europe
Yeah.
or even Canada now. Canada's got the gender law bullshit, right? That Jordan fought against for years, and now you can see where that's gone. Canada has lost its fucking mind completely.
Yeah, Canada's out of control. And it's a weird thing because I live in California and they never stop talking about tyrannical dictatorship. It was always Trump dictator, Trump dictator, Trump. And I'm like, Gavin Newsom is the dictator, not Trump. Gavin Newsom is the tyrannical dictator of California. He's the guy who banned outdoor dining a year ago based on nothing. These are the people that are doing all the oppressing. And for some reason, you don't see it in your own, and you're worried about others. I mean, I think most of it is projection, but it's kind of a simple equation for me, which is I will back any party that wants less power, any party that wants less rules, less regulation, and less dictatorship. You got my vote. It's funny that the party that is doing the most rules, the most regulation, the most taxes, the most involved in your life, education of your kids and everything else, COVID policy, those are somehow the people that are trying to fight oppression. I have no idea how we flip the script, but it's worked on all the dumbasses in California who vote for these people, who never stop talking about oppression and dictatorship and freedom, and then they vote for the lockdown party.
Yeah, it's Carlin had a theory about that. He just thought it was like a collective psychedelic flashback to all the drugs done back in the 70s that's just like warping people's brains now. And this was in the early 2000s when he said that. So you can imagine what a guy like that would think now.
Right.
Holy shit. He would be banned everywhere right now, I think, right?
He would have been canceled a couple times.
Yeah, but good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died at the right time.
Yeah, just like Jesus, right?
Well, Jesus had less of a choice than George
You
Carlin.
don't know that.
That's true.
I mean, Jesus knew that he was going to die in the story, right?
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you talking about?
I mean,
you saying Jesus ain't
might have
real?
been- I mean-
Canceled. Canceled. No, Carlin thought it was that. It is funny to see how the vast majority of the dictatorial bullshit that happened in the 20th century, primarily in the second half, was by crazy leftists in Cuba and Russia and China that killed not 6 million, but tens of millions of people. The reasonable estimates I've seen since the late 40s is something like probably 60 to 100 million people have been wiped out by communism. There's no other form of government on earth that can even get close to those numbers ever.
Yeah, Stalin did the most.
Well,
or he's definitely top one or two.
He's right behind Mao.
He was
Mao
right.
Yeah.
and Stalin. Yeah,
They were, they had a lot of time. I like Hitler's rate stats better.
Yeah, he got a lot done in a little bit of time.
Right.
For sure. But
They were accumulators.
yeah, well, look, there's got to be something said about longevity.
Agreed. Yeah,
And staying in power and not doing a full 6 grams of meth a day and blowing your brains out in the fucking basement somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mao kept it together. Right?
Yeah.
He's still president there, so far as I know.
He was a pro. Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, it's weird how in most of our lifetimes, I would say anybody, if you're 40 now, you were alive. I'm sorry, if you're 30 right now, you were alive when the Soviet Union was still a thing. Right?
Yeah. Just barely.
Yeah, barely, but it was
Yeah.
in your lifetime. So
Yeah.
when you were a kid, that was still being talked about in the news and shit. And somehow, we're still seeing it now. Honduras is about to elect a fucking crazy leftist government. Venezuela is on the brink 24 hours a day. They're like, when you're leaning back in your chair and you're just about to fall? That's Venezuela.
I assumed Venezuela was like an abandoned shopping mall of a
Well, the
country at
chair's
this
also
point.
on fire.
Yeah.
I guess, but it's that's pretty much how it is there. And I guess the main culprit in all this is the media, right? Just the way they misrepresent everything.
Yeah, I do think them sort of becoming partisan and taking sides and choosing themes, it's the way it goes. And also, if you think about it, and I was thinking about it earlier today, what the media does is there's the first blush of any story, and then there's the truth that kind of comes trickling out, right? So let's just pick something non-political. You go, there's a plane crash. What happened? It had engine failure, and it hit the side of a mountain. And you go, okay. And that's the first story you hear. And you let it sit for a little while. Later on, it starts turning out that the pilot was crazy, and maybe the pilot intentionally took the plane into the mountain. But as long as you get as long as you're first with the engine failure story, that's the one that 65 to 80% of Americans will believe 2 years from now, right? So they get it first, they get it wrong, they point it a direction, they want to point it, and then they know that most Americans don't have enough bandwidth to ever go really undo it. And a lot of Americans like the theme of what they're talking about. So you go, the Rittenhouse case, you go, vigilante kid, mom drove him to Kenosha, AR-15, went out hunting BLM members. Okay, good. First one. We got it in first. Now, it's all wrong, but we got it in first. And if we can get it in first, it'll dry the fastest in everyone's brain, and we'll have good luck undoing it.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. And then they go to the, Kenosha Christmas parade, and they go, the guy got in a knife fight, and he was being chased by the cops. So we detoured through the Christmas parade, and he hit a few people. Okay, good. In, cement, dry, done. Okay, now we got those two stories. Now, all we have to do is not really follow up too much on them. And then it's out there. And then if you ask somebody 3 years on, you go, hey, remember that plane that crashed? They go, oh, yeah, that had the engine failure, right? That's how it works. That's basically where we're living. Now, the big question is why is the media invested in the engine failure story?
Right.
Why aren't they invested in the truth? And it's political, and they like a theme because they're the arbiter of the theme. Who creates the theme? They say like, oh, Society's not creating a theme. You're pushing a narrative, and society's eating it. So you're a narrative pusher, not a news teller anymore, and that's what's happening.
I think it also doesn't help that people, to your point, like the engine failure thing, someone will hear like when you're like, no, it wasn't engine failure. The fucking pilot, dude, he put it into the mountain. Their first reaction is just, well, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty smart. I didn't hear that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they used to be a good measure. And if something happened and if you ran into some dude at the bar in the 1980s and he said, hey, fucking XYZ, whatever, let's make this a little more concrete. If you ran into a guy, let's say you had been not watching TV for the past 6 years, and you ran into a guy in 1969 in a bar and he's like, hey, we just put a fucking man on the moon. The dude would be like, no, you didn't. Sure didn't. But if you put the New York Times in front of him and it says that, he'd be like, oh shit, that really happened. Because the New York Times doesn't make up bullshit. And for some reason, it's probably what was it called? The Gelman amnesia effect?
Yeah.
It's probably the Gelman amnesia effect, but people still have trust in these institutions, although less and less. But it still is like third-party authentication. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like where, this person says it's true, so it must be true. We don't have the time, as Adam said, we don't have the bandwidth to build all these schema in our head to know enough about a situation to know if it's right or wrong or correct or not or whatever.
Or the bandwidth to feel shittier. So
Yeah.
which is why they hew to like what they like to hear, right?
Yeah, but so back to Adam's point where you have the Rittenhouse thing and there's a narrative that comes out that is clearly anti-white, right? Like because there are no black people involved in this case. There are 4 people involved, not one of them black, but somehow the kid's a white supremacist. People, even up a week after the fucking trial was over, were saying it only cost us 3 black lives. Well, first of all, only 2 people died, and both of them were fucking white, dummy. So none of this shit is true, but it's enough that they were like that. And that could just be seen as, well, they're contrarians. They still see whiteness as the dominant power, so they're whatever. They think they're counterculture, whatever. But then on the other side, when they fucking say things like, Waukesha will hold a moment of silence today, marking 1 week since a car drove through a city Christmas parade, killing 6 people and injuring scores of others. A car did that. That sounds an awful lot like Ellen Omar's "Some People Did Some Things," right? Talking about 9/11. This is not reality.
Right.
So it's one thing for them to be anti this kid or whatever as an effigy for the whole fucking movement, but then to willfully shield somebody who murdered people on purpose because they were white from that's a very aggressive act, in my opinion. Not the driving the car.
Well, it's a two-way street. You have to, pardon the pun, but you have to play up Rittenhouse and the white supremacy movement. That's play it up, juice it up, and then the car driving through the Christmas parade with the guy with all the anti-white and BLM postings on it. That we have to push down. So it's not. It's kind of two things. We have to do two things at once. We have to build up our candidate, and we have to push down the other. And that's what you see. So you get to see in the course of, 3 days, you get to see the media at work. You get to see them push up and inflate Rittenhouse and tamp down the other case simultaneously in the same state in a 72-hour period.
It is very...
If you just study that one 72-hour period, you'll understand the media.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and you're starting to see some of it come to fruition where people's minds are rebelling against certain things, right? I guess on both sides, a lot of people have distanced themselves from people they would have allied themselves with before because people just get too crazy, like Marjorie Taylor Greene is a lunatic.
Right.
But on the left, Politico is tearing itself apart right now. There's news stories all about it, all over the place, about how people are tired of them intentionally misrepresenting reality towards some woke bullshit. And they're just like, what the fuck? Like, these are senior people at the company Politico.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're not doing this
anymore. We're writing crazy things.
They also do this thing with, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And, you go, AOC is nuts. And, boy, if she ever gets any real power, we're in trouble. And then they go, what about Marjorie Taylor Greene? She thinks that Jews have laser beams and, shoot down satellites. And you go, okay, that's fair. But here would be my challenge to you. If I just showed 100 Americans a picture of AOC and 100 Americans a picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene, which one could they identify?
Right.
Yeah, nobody knows what Marjorie Taylor Greene looks like.
Yeah.
Right, because she's not the leader of anything. And this false equivalent bullshit they try to do, they go, well, what about crazy person on the right? It's like, that's true. She's considered crazy. She's been stripped of all her committees, and nobody listens to her.
But also by people on the right. That's the difference. Like, I didn't hear the Ahmaud Arbery trial, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see one motherfucker of any note except for weirdos on the internet, but not even many of those.
Yeah.
That usually comment on, like, we have a pretty libertarian and conservative fan base, and we make a comment that might be seen as nuanced towards guns or self-defense or anything like that, we will get lit up for that. And I don't care about that. I like the ping, to be honest. But in this case, I didn't hear one motherfucker defending these guys. They essentially hunted this dude down, right? I just haven't heard it. So I don't want to hear the false equivalents where, like, if this were fucking blah, 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 well, here's an example, and it just fucking happened. Like, within a 2-week period, all these things transpired to prove what you're saying wrong, including the guy from the Breonna Taylor case who shot a cop.
Yeah.
But the cops did not conduct themselves right on issuing, like, going through the warrant or something like that. Yeah. So there's an example, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? You can't tell me something isn't real when it just happened.
It was a solid week for the American jury system.
They try. Yeah, I know.
Well,
they got it right in both directions.
A lot of it is ideology. I think a lot of it is also business. I mean, otherwise, Chris Cuomo wouldn't still have a job. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's long for this world job-wise.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, Adam, you've seen the latest on him. He's like, I did not have sex with that woman. I didn't have anything to do with my brother's defense. I was just there to listen. Like, apparently he was coordinating all the shit behind the scenes and investigating the women that were accusing the man That's a very
But I mean, really think about it. He's Chris Cuomo. His brother's a governor. He's ensconced in the news business. He's got connections up the wazoo. It's his brother. They're paisans. Like what brother? The notion, when he makes the announcement, hey, I'm just an anchor. That's my brother. He's on his own. I have no involvement with it. Why should we believe it based on what, if he did, if he was a roofing contractor, maybe I'd believe it, but he's in the business.
Yeah.
And his brother, all right, but look no further than Joe Biden and Hunter Biden.
Ooh.
Joe Biden's like, I have no idea what my son's business dealings. We never talk about. Well, think about that statement. If your son had a frozen yogurt place in Glendale, don't you think you would talk to him about his business?
Well, you definitely.
Much less his son going to China and dealing with a bunch of people you've hooked him up with. Like, it's patently insane to think that Cuomo wouldn't go to bat for his brother, and it's patently insane to think that Biden wouldn't have discussions with his son about his international business.
Yeah. It doesn't help that they have a bank account together.
Who, Joe and Hunter?
Yeah, that's kind of rough. I mean, when you see that, when he's like,
Right.
I didn't know what was going on, I'm like, well, you literally need your fucking social security number and you present to start that account. So, I mean, maybe you gave him power of attorney. I don't know.
That happens to a lot of crack addicts, though.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
The scariest part about that entire chapter with the Hunter Joe Biden part is when the laptop came out and they got 50 former FBI and CIA guys and Brenner and all that kind of stuff, and they all just signed off saying Russian disinformation. That's the part as a country we should be frightened of the most.
Yeah, where were those assholes with the Steele dossier? Because that was all made up. Like, what the fuck?
If you think about it, in terms of fear of a citizen in our nation, Hunter doing what Hunter did, that's what a lot of ne'er-do-well kids do. Biden doing what Biden did, that's his oldest time. Politician using his power to get. The scariest part of the whole equation is you getting 50 former CIA and FBI directors and everything else to sign a document of something that they knew was unprovable, they knew was untrue, and it was a complete bullshit. That's the scary part, that those guys are doing that on behalf. It's not what Hunter's doing, and it's not what Joe's doing.
Yeah.
It's what they're doing. That's the scariest part. And then you get to wave the piece of paper around and go, 50 of the highest ranking intelligence people we have signed a document that said there should be more made of that.
Yeah,
I'd like to
for
know why this guy's, and it's so funny. It's like, I was talking to Dr. Drew about this the other day, but it's like when they go experts, when they go like, we're going to give the taxpayers, $5 trillion, and the experts say it's not going to cost a penny. And it's like, same experts that signed the piece of paper that said the laptop was Russian, or different. Is this a new set of experts?
Yeah.
Different set of experts?
It's funny.
How far out the window have experts gone in the last few years?
Well, I don't think they've ever been I don't think they've ever been good. Like, it's funny because people know, sports fans know that like 90% of the experts on television are dog shit.
Yep.
But every expert on normal news is pretty good somehow. It feels like it probably tracks across industries.
It's an aspirational marketing thing almost, but basically, what new journalism is you find out, you run polling to see what most people believe, right? And maybe you can push their belief to one direction or another, but you run polling to see what their core beliefs are, and then you fucking not even fabricate, but put together small pieces of news, maybe with a little bend on it, just so far that they'll reach their confirmation bias and pay no more attention. That's why people that's why Rachel Maddow still has a job despite defaming Trump and his entire staff for 4 fucking years straight, right? And to your point, Adam, about the organizations inside of the U.S. government being involved, this isn't new either. I mean,
no.
Frankly, the CIA probably killed JFK. Let's be real.
Well, it's not new, but it used to be done sort of covertly.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
They were gentlemen about it.
It's like somebody. Remember that scene in The Wire season 3 where the guy steals candy from the store right in front of the security guard just to show him that he can't do anything about it or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a dick move. Just steal their candy and move on, dude. Nobody cares about a fucking blow pop.
But they used to, run guns to the Sandinistas or something. But the flights were at night. You know what I mean? Now you got these guys just going on CNN, looking straight into the lens, saying whatever they want.
I mean, the FBI and CIA were I've never heard of anything like this. This is the worst thing I've ever heard of happening. J. Edgar Hoover used to collect information on public officials a lot to blackmail them for sure, but he did that. Like, not at the behest of the president or anything. He just did it because he was a fucking lunatic.
Right.
Obama told the FBI and the CIA, he launched investigations into the Trump campaign, right, that continued after Trump won. So he was leveraging the executive branch of the government against an incoming president. That's, to my knowledge, we've never had actual evidence of that happening before. And now, with the Steele dossier stuff that's come out over the last year or so, we now know that it was complete bullshit. The entire thing was faked. And the fucking DNC paid for some of it. Like, this can't be real. This can't happen. But it is.
And they got Pulitzers for the reporting on it.
And Obama got a fucking Nobel Peace Prize 21 days in the fucking office. I mean, hey, look, man, things matter. Apparently, not any of these things.
Not really a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, whatever. Oh boy. Well, tell us about the new show again and where we can find it, when we could expect to see it. I know you got to get out of here soon.
The first episode's with Jay Leno. That's out. Second episode's with Rob Riggle. That's out. It's at thedailywire.com, and you can just go there and subscribe and get all this. They're hour-long. They're funny. Stand-up without having to kind of deal with the politics of Netflix or HBO or ABC. It's just go to a platform, say what I want, and not have to deal with all the Hollywood bullshit. But most importantly, it's funny. It's not like a sloppy seconds type situation.
Right.
It's not political per se, but it'll drift in one direction or the other direction depending on the nature of improv. But it's funny, it's good, it's an hour, and if people, maybe your audience is tired of being sort of preached at by a lot of the shit they put on HBO and Netflix, this would be a happy alternative.
Yeah, I thought that was the most interesting part about it is, like, again, it's not like a right-wing political show or anything. It's just a place you felt you could go and do what you wanted. Like, it's literally just freedom.
Right, it's freedom.
Well, that's what we do
right,
in this country, is just freedom. So it's good. I'm glad to see you have a show over there. I look forward to watching some of these episodes for sure. I look forward to the new guests too. I just we've always enjoyed your comedy and your perspective on life in general. And it's really good to see more people kind of telling the mainstream, I guess, woke industrial complex to go fuck itself.
Right. But not even
absolutely.
Yeah, but by doing it.
Yeah, by doing it. Not just lobbing bombs on Twitter or something, but actually doing shit to make it better. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Have a good one.
Take care, guys.
I guess we could keep going for a minute.
Yeah, why not?
I was going to clap and end this, but that was good. I really enjoy what he does in general, and the fact that he doesn't give a fuck about stuff. I mean, he's one of I mean, it's just an alpha male, basically, right?
Yeah.
We deal with mostly betas these days, but you see it with I doubt that Adam Carolla and Charles Barkley agree on a lot of stuff politically. There's probably some overlap when it comes to personal responsibility and shit like that, but for the most part, I would assume they have some very disparate opinions. But when people come after Adam, he's just like, yeah, I don't care. And then when Charles Barkley makes a joke about fat women in San Antonio, we're like, you can't say that. He goes, well, there's a lot of fat women in San Antonio, right? I mean, that's the only way you win against this stupid ideology, is just to hold the facts up. Like, here they are.
I would say even just to, and it's not easy, I guess, but just to like endure, just to keep going, just keep making it. Because it doesn't take long for them to give up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean, I don't know if they give up. It's just like the new outrage thing happens, and if they're not getting the dopamine hit they need by pats on the back, yeah, you got him, then they just move on to the next guy.
Right.
Right. It's like having a fucking ADT sign on your door, even though you don't have a fucking security system.
Yeah.
You're still 60% less likely to get broken into because somebody's gonna be like, oh, well, the next house doesn't have a sign.
yeah,
So
it's fine. But it's like a person who reminds me of that, where it's just like Twitter or whomever just kind of giving up, and they're like, it's not, you can't get to him. It's Ricky Gervais.
yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
You know what I mean? It's just like because they can't get that dopamine hit because nobody's going to rally behind it because they know that they can't really do anything to him.
They're not that motherfucker to steal on, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't try to rob people who they know it's gonna not work out well for them.
Yeah.
And in the same way, they don't try to butt heads with people. You don't see a whole lot of people accepting Jordan Peterson one-on-one debates, for example, about wokeness and shit like that. What you see is a group of 10 to 15 college kids all shouting different questions at him at the same time. But if any of those kids had the balls just to walk aside, I think that's what Jordan Peterson should do. He should have an argument booth, but only one person is allowed in at a time. All right, make your argument, and I'll rebut it.
Yeah.
We're not going to go at this where I'm answering the questions of 15 different people.
Right.
Just doesn't work. But that's the only way that you can win that argument is by shouting him down. And if that's the case, if you're trying to make a point and your strategy that you're either starting with or that you're eventually left with is simply shutting the other person down, that means you've lost.
Yeah. Whether it's shouting or getting like super personal.
Yeah.
That type of shit. Just
There's a
getting
whole list
petty.
of them. There's a whole list of logical fallacies. You can look them up.
Yeah.
Right?
They're all very fun.
Yeah, some of them are actually pretty fun because some of them are like you have to really look into something like Robert's Rules of Orders or something to understand why that's a problem. Like, you know what I mean? I enjoy that stuff. If you're into debate, you should do that because, or actually, even if you're not in debate, if you're just trying to figure out, people ask me all the time, what news do you read? I read all of it because I spent my entire academic career understanding how people debate one another and where something that might sound right is actually just circular reasoning or a self-licking ice cream cone that doesn't actually make any sense.
Yeah.
But it sounds good. You're like, oh, that makes sense. But no, it doesn't actually make sense. And here's why. That's what you got to do. You got to figure out how to investigate shit.
We also have a joke on I think on Softcore, maybe it was on Monday Morning, I can't remember, but where another like red flag in an argument, almost like a logical fallacy or whatever, is, or maybe it's more like Godwin's law, is now whenever anyone accuses you of a logical fallacy, like when they're just like, straw man, and it's like, I don't think you know what straw man is, but you're just throwing it out there to like to just shut down my argument immediately.
Well, it works sometimes if you're stupid and you allow it to, unfortunately.
So it works a lot.
Yeah. Well, people, I don't think it's that people are stupid necessarily. I think it's that people, as Adam said before, are like people ask me how I get my news. I go through a very rigorous process. I doubt many people have the time to do all that bullshit.
Right.
Which is why more and more people are watching Sagar and Yeti and shit like that. But eventually, if you want to be involved in the conversation, and I would recommend that, because when there's a conversation going on about how life is going to be, like how much liberty you're going to have, you probably want to fucking pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So you should really start educating yourself on how to have these conversations. And with that, we're going to fuck off. But we're going to play a couple of clips that they sent us over here.
Yeah. Some good ones.
Yeah,
The Joe Biden shoe clip, I was a big fan of.
Yeah. They sent us some funny stuff just to give you a preview of what's going on there, and you can go subscribe to the Daily Wire and fucking watch all this shit.
Oh, he didn't mention this, by the way, but on the Daily Wire, so it's a show, right? Like it's a video, it's a show, but you can also get audio of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's not something you have to watch on your laptop or smart TV or something like that. You can listen to it as a podcast or whatever as well.
Cool. Well, that's dope. I'm definitely going to check it out. And we will see you in hell, I guess. We'll see you later. Enjoy the Adam Carolla bits.
But I was thinking about that press conference that George W. Bush did about 13 years ago in Iraq. Remember somebody threw a shoe at his head? He slipped it like Floyd Mayweather, right? He didn't flail, hand didn't come up, he just slipped it and was right back on prompter, man. That guy is slick. You throw a shoe at Joe Biden? You will kill him.
For the last year, you couldn't go to bars, you couldn't go to restaurants. You had to keep 6 feet away from women. It's like every guy had to live like Harvey Weinstein. We're in lockdown for months and months, which is actually good news for Lori Loughlin. At least she didn't miss much. And I see Dr. Fauci every night on the news, and he says the same thing. The coronavirus is a war. We have to fight it like a war. And when you think about it, it's the only war in history that when the war is over, all the soldiers are fatter. And there was a lot of talk that wealthier communities got preferential treatment when it came to giving out the vaccine. Do you think that's true?
That's what I hear, yeah.
Like in Beverly Hills, I got the Pfizer vaccine with a Madeira drizzle on a chocolate llama biscotti. See, I don't think you got that in the Valley.
No, not Reseda.
A lot of mom and pop restaurants went out of. Here's how bad it was. I saw a mafia don getting dinner to go at an Olive Garden. Okay, that shows you how many restaurants. I had a friend of mine in Burbank, a funeral director, committed suicide. Committed suicide. He didn't want to, he just needed the business. See, that's how bad, I'm just saying. And of course, the saddest had to be Tom Selleck. You knew about that.
I didn't know about that.
Turned down for a reverse mortgage. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Terrible thing. But enough about that. But enough about that. We're over the hump now.
Jay, you ready to hop over to the hopper and pull some balls out of there?
And what do we do here? Oh, do I spin this or just reach in?
Yeah. We passed out the balls before the show. Audience had a chance just to write one word.
We grab one, and what is this here now? Just grab anything?
Yep, read it out.
Okay, this says... What? Is that supposed to be Michigan?
Michigan.
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 Or is it Jewish? Michigash.
Michigash. Well, we could probably find the one Jew living in Michigan and ask them.
But he's not here.
He's not here.
Yeah.
Well, we can use Michigan or Michigash.
Yeah, Michigan is fine.
If you like. You know Detroit muscle. You're a Michigan guy.
Detroit's one of my favorite towns.
What do we do about motor? Detroit is Motor City. For a long time, they said it's not a motor, it's an engine.
Right.
Because it's internal combustion.
Now it's going to be electric, so it is the motor.
It's back to motor.
That's right.
You got a Tesla. You drove it here tonight, right?
Right, I did. I have a Tesla, and I drove that new Mach-E Mustang, which is very good.
The Mach-E Mustang.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the all-electric Mustang.
Right.
Yeah, and the Tesla Plaid, I think.
Tesla Plaid. But electricity is like sex. Men have no compulsion about lying about it. You know, you'll get, like when you buy those electric scooters, you go 100 miles. No, you go 28 miles. I mean, that's really what it is. It is like sex. Guy will just lie about it and tell you how, but if you have maybe a Japanese hunger striker, maybe you get a little extra mileage, but that's about it. Not true. Not true. That's the only downside to the electric.
Jay, a personal question for you. Do you pay retail for your automobiles, or does the factory just give them to you?
No, I pay retail for you. I buy my cars. I buy my car. What, do you think they give you cars? Is that what you
I don't know. I'm not a man in your position. I would think it
That's
would be...
why they've never given you a car.
All right, pull another ball.
I'll pull another.
This wasn't supposed to turn into a roast, Jay.
Sasquatch.
Sasquatch.
That's like some kind of vegan thing, isn't it?
A Sasquatch sandwich. Sasquatch, who's also well, it's not the abominable snowman, right? It was Bigfoot is Sasquatch, right?
No, I think they're two different.
You think Bigfoot and Sasquatch are different animals? I think they're the same.
You think it's the same? So you think He changes costumes. He
No!
puts on a Bigfoot costume. Oh, these are the Sasquatch people coming. Then he changes. Is that what you think?
No. We did it like Demi Moore turned into Demi Moore. Same person,
Right.
slightly different name.
Right.
We decided to call it what the Indians called it.
I think what you do, you go in the woods, you go, Sasquatch! If he turns around, then
Right.
you got Sasquatch. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
You
agree.
say
yeah.
Bigfoot. What? Aha! That was Bigfoot. I mean, that's how you tell them apart.
Yeah. And
I think we better move on.
You want to move on? Okay, we'll move on. Chase, look, he's been in the business for 50 years. He says move on, we move on.
What's the squishy? Is that what that is?
Squishy? Yes, squishy. Is that these girls over here?
That's a girl word. That's kind of. It's like moist. That's one of those gross words.
Yeah.
You know. It's the kind of word women hate. Moist, squishy.
Yeah.
Just sounds. Am I right? It is. That's a disgusting word. Let's move on.
All right.
Audi belly button.
Audi belly button.
No, but it should be Audi, O-U, right? This is Audi, like the car, A-U-D-I.
Audi belly
Okay, if
button.
this is not proof that we need to pay our teachers more, ladies and gentlemen. An Audi belly, A-U-D-I. An
That is
Audi
sad.
belly button.
That
as
is
opposed
sad.
to a Mercedes-Benz
Right.
or a BMW belly button.
Yeah. I have an innie, and my innie gets further in every 2 years. I'm now...
Look, no, it's Audi belly button. It's button. It's not
Again.
even button.
Again, you're right. LA Unified School District, people.
There you go.
Look no further. Jay's going for another ball.
Inconclusive. Oh, somebody's been watching Jeopardy. Look at that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh. Somebody who graduated wrote this one. Inconclusive. I think that would probably be, well, they'll be that way after the show.
Right, to be like,
Yeah.
was it a good
What'd you
show?
think? I'm inconclusive.
Inconclusive.
Yeah.
Jay was strong.
Jay was
Carolla
good,
just kind of
yeah.
mailed it in.
Yeah. Inconclusive.
Our record for pulling these balls is probably, it's about 5, probably translates into about 20 minutes. I think we're on our 13th ball in 7
I
minutes.
know we have-
Here, but this ball stinks. You're
You-
right.
you
Get a
want it?
new
Okay.
ball. I got nothing for that.
Somebody just too smart for their own good.
That's right.
Oh, Brandon. But you already did Brandon.
Brandon.
You did Brandon.
Well, this is. I just said Duck Brandon, but Jay, do you know the Brandon story?
I do know the Brandon.
Let's Go Brandon
Yes,
story?
I have a television. I read the newspaper. Yeah. Yeah. So Jay, you know this? How fascinating.
You have a television. But
See, that's the thing when you're in show business. The more successful you are, the more mentally incompetent people you are. Now, you probably experience this too. Like when you go to a show, they say, oh, I walk in the studio. How'd you get here? I drove myself. Jay drove himself. And where'd you park? In the space. Jay drove himself and parked in the space himself.
Yeah,
And,
right.
and you know, you see them.
100%,
They're,
yeah.
they're astounded that you can do these simple tasks.
The other thing they don't think, and it's a comedy thing for sure, comedians have no other skills. So they're surprised. Like
Right.
if you go, what'd you do today? I've changed the spark plugs in my car. They go, okay, get the hell out of
Yeah,
here.
right, yeah. Come on, that's right.
You had Mr. Goodwrench come over to your house. I was a journeyman carpenter, and I was a boxing instructor before
remember.
I got into comedy. So people would go, what'd you do before you got into comedy? Was you a bartender, gay porn? What were you doing? And I go, no, I was a carpenter, and then I was a boxing coach. And they go, boxing coach? Get the hell out of here.
Well, that's how we met. He was working on the house. This is true. He was working on the house across the street. And every day I would come out of my bathrobe about noon. I would see him sweating with a hammer going, look at that rich prick over there.
I just said prick. I didn't think you were that rich at the time. You were renting at the
Right,
time.
right.
Well, hold on, Jay, because this is an absolutely true story. Jay's up in a house up in the Hollywood Hills. I'm working on a house directly across the street. we're actually, the people whose house I was working on was parking their car in your garage, I think parking it in your driveway, I think, to make room for the truck and whatever. And I'm up there on scaffolding, spreading stucco at 8 in the morning, every morning, hot and miserable. And I see Jay mincing out in his silk monogram
Look at that loser.
with his ascot. He'd come out at noon, pick up his newspaper, look at me, and then throw his scarf over his shoulder and walk back into his house.
That's right.
And I'm just looking at him the whole time. Then about 1, you'd come out, you'd work on your bikes.
Right, that's about
So
right.
Jay'd come out about 1, he'd start working on his bikes. And then at some point, I'd knock off work about 3:30, and I just started coming across the street going, whatever your job is, I want to do that.
That's what he said.